how to automate. For those of you who don't know me, I think we want to go to the second slide. Yeah, for those of you who don't know me, so my name is Andrew Hallam, and I'm the General Secretary of ASPIRE, which is the network of tech and business services companies, mainly located in Krakow. So I am joined, as you can see from the slide, by the equally hirsute Michał Bielawski, Managing Partner of Adaptive Solutions, who are our partner and the main organizer in putting together today's event. So shortly, I'm going to be handing over to Michał to run through the agenda and to explain how we would like to run the next 70 minutes or so. First, however, if I could say a couple of words from an ASPIRE perspective on why we think this is an important topic. You know, the last 9 months or so, we have been firefighting. But if we try to think back before COVID, if we can think back before COVID appeared in our path, so automation was one of the big topics, probably the hottest topic in town at the time. In fact, if I think back to our last centreheads face-to-face physical meeting before lockdown, we debated the interface between man and machine, or what we called bots and people. And what we concluded was that that interface of people and machines is at the very heart of our industry. Moreover, it's a key strength of the industry in Central and Eastern Europe. Now, looking now from the other side of the pandemic, or I'm not sure where the other side, but anyway, we're certainly at a point where we're starting to look at what the new normal may look like. I mean, I think what we can say is that the effective combination of people and machine has helped to create the robust ecosystem which has been behind our eyes this last 10, 20 years. But it's also what sustained us over the last 9 months. And crucially, it's what will enable us to grasp the opportunity that is surely coming our way as we establish that new normal. And I say the opportunity that is coming our way because this is what we're seeing is new work which is migrating into our centres within Krakow, and I'm sure in other locations within the region, and an extended scope, and again, you know, pressures on costs and so on and so forth. So that's why, from an ASPIRE perspective, it's an important topic. So at this point, maybe let's hand over to Michał. Michał, I think you're going to explain how we want to approach the topic and also the rules of engagement. But maybe firstly, maybe you want to also give us your take on why this is an important topic.
Yeah, so thank you very much, and already good afternoon to everyone. As Andrea mentioned here, we are in the new normal. So normally we will say welcome in Krakow. However, Andrea in Scotland, we are in Łódź, Herve in France. So welcome in Krakow. Yeah, automation or this transformation is, let's say, definitely key. But for me, the most important question is that we would like to do this and we don't need to do this. So I would like to share the story. It's not my story, but I like it very much. How looks this automation? Meaning that if you can imagine caterpillar, and if you will automize the caterpillar, you will receive very, very fast caterpillar. But if you will have a caterpillar and then you will transform digitally or transform the caterpillar is transformed, then you will receive very nice butterfly. So the same with the automation, with the same with the transformation. We would like to receive and we would like to make our processes, our centers our organizations look like a beautiful, beautiful butterflies, not like a very fast caterpillars. And this is what we are running for. So yeah, this is the points which I think we will touch today, together with the ASPIRE, together with a few very well experienced in this area people. Few words about adaptive. We are a consulting agency. Together with our 50 consultants, we are helping the shared service center and business service center organization to grow, to make the processes automate, just simply to make the processes better and organization better. But okay, so I hope you will feel it during the presentation. What is agenda for today? We identified 4 points. So 3 points in the discussion way, meaning automation versus robotization. Center of this means how to make the differentiator between the really RPA, which is very fancy, but also different way of automation, maybe much better, but easier or better fitting for your needs. Then the center of excellence versus community. This is the area when we would like to discuss the governance of the program, of the approach. It's better to do in, let's say, democratic way as the community, or it's better to do a very structural way everything have in order. And finally, the tools and the platform. So really cases, what is good and what is bad, what are the pros, what are the cons of different solutions. And yeah, we would like to finish the discussion with the answering the question when the center is ready, because there is no golden rule for that. So different approach, different stages of the organization. We are on the different stages of the maturity. So let's discuss, let's elaborate a bit when this tools approach methodology should be applied. House rules for today, very clear, very short. So the speakers will be visible, and we will share the presentation, but also we will share the screen of the speaker, but the rest, please keep the mic and the camera off. Of course, we are engage you to put the question on the chat box. We have the moderator who will help us and put the questions on, and we would like to direct the question to the speakers. Be aware the webinar is recorded, which is good information, because this means that end of the day, we will put the whole webinar in our channel in YouTube, but also all registered people will receive the short note with the link to the recordings and with the link to the presentation shared today. And yeah, once more, Q&A session will be end of the presentation, end of the webinar. So feel free to put the question, and we will try to answer them. So next, who will talking? So here we are welcome our guest, yeah, Andrew.
Yeah, this is to me. So yeah, so starting left, going from left to right. Yeah. So let me start by introducing Jarek Wojnarowski, as it says, head of shared services at Velux. Jarek also has a responsibility for introducing RPA across the business. And if I can say one more thing about Jarek, he is a forward thinker in another way. So although Velux is based in Warsaw and ASPIRE is a network of Krakow centres, Jarek has rightly identified that this is no barrier to shared learning. So congratulations, Jarek, and maybe that's just a pointer to any other centres out there not based in Krakow. You're more than welcome to become part of the ASPIRE network. Okay, Michał, to you.
Second speaker is Mariusz Pultyn, Chief Technology Officer for Digital Teammates. What I can tell him, in the Digital Teammates already coordinating or running more than 400 robots, and then the officers who are overseeing the robots, it's called shepherd in the organization, meaning that Mariusz is prince or king of the shepherds, of the RPA shepherds. So I think his voice will be valuable here today.
Right. Okay. So from the king of the shepherds, we better go to the father of robots. This is Herve. We call him that. He's overseen the development of 100 plus robots, I think, over the last 4 to 5 years. First into the centre and now into the business. Herve is an ASPIRE board member. He's also leads our an F&A leaders group. And even more, so we heard that Herve is in France today, and this meeting coincides with lunchtime in France, which is a very serious culture clash, I can assure you. So a special thank you to Herve for agreeing to be with us. Thanks, Herve.
We also have Michał Kasprzyk, the head of the Alcon Global Service General Center in Warsaw. But as I know, Michał, at least a huge part of his heart is in Krakow. So currently he is living in Warsaw, but here with this webinar, I hope his memory coming back to the Krakow. So welcome, Michał, and looking for the nice talks. And last but not least, two program managers from Adaptive, Monika Ciupińska and Michał Ejchman, who will somehow lead the presentation. We will show some slides, but later on we'll put the question to the speakers. Monika, Michał, the floor is yours.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. We will start with the first topic, which is automation versus robotization. And when we are thinking about automation, we should introduce the continuous improvement culture in our organization. You may ask why, but when we do it, our employees will start looking for the processes which can be easily automated. It's a great start for the transformation, which is needed to implement the robotics in the future. Right now, the robots are very popular, but we should remember that this technology is a part of automation. Please look on the steps on the slide. There are different forms of automation. We can easily start with creating some spreadsheets, which enable us to upload the data into the system and maintain it afterwards. Well-known scripts, which can help us to perform the tasks in the background, so-called jobs. We have also plugins which will help us to work with the databases, the huge databases. And at the end, there are robots, which make the processes much more efficient, and it can even perform more complex processes without the help of human. And I would like to ask the first questions to Michał Kasprzyk and Mariusz. Does every organization enable the introduction of robotics? Do the organization use other tools, the old-fashioned ones like VBA, Excel, and Subscriptic, for example, or now it's only robotics what is in place?
Okay, thank you. So maybe I can start with that question. And it's really interesting because in Alcon we have introduced the RPA even before shared service were established. So for those who don't know, Alcon was for many years part of Novartis Group, and only since 2019, since April 2019, we are an independent company, right? So the separation process was starting there, and as part of the separation process over last almost 2 years, we have established 4 centers. One is located in Warsaw, as it was said in the introduction. But the whole RPA platform in Alcon was already established or built in 2018, right? So even before separation. On the other hand, if I look how much we have achieved and how much efficiencies gained were generated by this platform, and if I compare to what we have achieved in the last few months, basically with smaller automations, I would say we have achieved more with smaller automations, scripts, Excels, other solutions than really for RPA, right? And we have really few bots, mostly in the customer operations area, in US only, not really widely distributed across typical shared service functions, right? And obviously, it's because on one side we are still new and we are still separating from Novartis, and I would say that long term it might be a way for us. But on the other side, yeah, we still a lot we can achieve with simple solutions, and which are maybe easier to implement and will not require such a big investments. I mean, even if the investment was done. And are also very linked to our continuous improvement culture that we would like to establish from the beginning, right? So definitely we are using, as I said, scripts, Excels, VBAs, macros, but also we are looking into the solutions which can do the same work as RPA, but they are not RPA, right? So there are programs like, for example, Blackline, which can be used for account reconciliation. And I have seen cases where RPA was used to do exactly the same task. But in our case, we are really looking before we decide if we will go with automate or RPA, or if we will apply a different type of automation. We really identify if it's the right fit for RPA and what are the potential constraints, and if there are no better solutions which can deliver the results faster or in a different way. So that would be my immediate response. But I believe Mariusz might have a different perspective as he's the RPA shipper.
Yeah, probably a little bit, but to put things in a really big perspective, it's when we think about the automation, to start with, first thing that comes to my mind is, do we really need to automate anything? This is the story of this fast caterpillar. Sometimes it's really useful to take a look at the process and try to decide whether or not it should be automated, because maybe you can do something else. And this is something that I would really recommend. Start thinking about the processes in the regular, I would say, process optimization way. But if you decide to really automate something, really the first thing, even if I'm really shipping the RPA robots like in hundreds, I would really recommend, and I would recommend it to all of my clients, first try to change the underlying system. This is usually, if you think about automating, it's really the most effective way. If you are actually allowed to do that, if you have the capacity to do that, please do that. This is usually the most effective, the most cost-effective even way. But we are not living in the perfect world, as we know. And sometimes it's really a nightmare first to optimize the process. I don't have to tell you, it's like the different committees have to decide whether or not to change anything. It can be a nightmare. Then if you come to the guys who can change the system, it's also can be difficult, because sometimes it's really costly or time consuming or whatever else the reason is not to change the system. So then we have to do something to work around. In the real world, in the real engineering situation, we have to automate something using different tools. And I don't really think there is a hierarchy of this thing. So it's not like that you start with macros, then like in a game, pass the first level, kill the boss, and then go up and do the scripting, and then go up, and then you have the robots, and in the top you have this AI. It's not like that. It's a whole different tools in the toolset. So really, when you decide, you have to really take care of what's the most effective way that you can automate anything. And if it comes to this scripting, macros, and robots, this is the one part of the story. Pretty much it's about writing algorithms, doing this regular engineering stuff. The other thing, whole different story is AI. It's a whole different, probably not for this conversation, but you have to have different skills, different processes, and in general, it's much more difficult. So it's not like a step in the process. But just speaking about the robotization, I'm of course the evangelist of the robotization. Why I think this is the good answer to the most of the problems, because it's much more mature and much more easily scalable and much more easily maintainable that scripting or macros or anything that you can do while doing the code. So robotization, when you think about it, is a really good. I think somebody is.
Yes.
I'll try to maybe a little bit, but if you could, okay. I'm back. So just to to give you the perspective. Of course, you can do the macros. Of course, you can do the scripting. But when thinking about the robotic platforms, and we have quite mature platforms to do that, it's much more easy. Probably I can tell it a little bit more in the next question, in the next part. In general, when you think about automating anything, the robotization is the way to go, because it's, on the one hand, it's quite easy to interoperate between many systems, which of course scripting and macros are not the best way to do that. It's quite a quick response, quite easy to implement, and which is more and more important these days, it's quite easy to teach the people to try to use the current capacity of your intellectual capacity of your organizations to really get into this robotic world and create effective automations in any of the systems, especially when you have to deal with the many systems, and this is probably the reality. We have to deal with more and more complex and more difficult systems. This is something.
Michał, you mentioned that you achieved a much better result just recently, but also coming related to what Mariusz mentioned, did you, before using the tools and using the different way of automation, did you do some kind of the more complex assessment, meaning we have a problem, but that's why we are using particular solutions, or how you approach, how do you select the tools? Because that's how do you know, or did you make this structural assessment, or you have let's try something?
So Michał, that's a great question, and I think definitely, as I said, our processes start with continuous improvement, right? So first of all, there has to be an idea, and this idea can come from the employees. It can come, a little bit top down, based on different process changes that the GPOs are planning to implement. And the first question is even, as Mariusz rightly said, do we need to automate, right? So one of our lessons learned is that we have recently deployed one SAP system, right? For many years, Alcon was having a different ERP system. Now we are on SAP. The project is almost completed, but one of the lessons learned is that still, I would say 40% of the functionalities are not in use, right? So they are there, they are deployed, but people are not aware that they can use them, and they don't know how to use them, right? So first, before even going to the automation, Mariusz said change the system. I would say check if people are using the system to the extent it's possible, right? Are they aware of all these features, of the possibilities that they have in the system? And I have some examples where, at the end of the day, one of my team members who is responsible for automation was already writing a script. But in the meantime, we figured out that this functionality already exists. It was basically people were not aware, so they came with an idea. We are, as I said, a little bit new, and all the team members are relatively new. So the guy said, okay, I've done it in my previous company. Let's do an automation around that. And he was even thinking to write a robot, right? But then it turned out, after certain research and checking, that there is a standard functionality which can be reused, and basically people will need to be trained, right? So that's the first thing. And that's obviously we do the assessment. As I said, we check what would be the best solution. We have a standard process to verify if this particular case should be robotized through RPA. There are certain criteria and questions that should be answered before we go and deploy RPA solution. But quite often, as I said, we turn out that our processes are not yet stable enough, or we don't have enough volumes to have the RPA. And we had such, failures, right? Where we identified that maybe certain process will be good for automation, but when you deep dive and when you go inside, you will see that first of all, the process is not as easy as you thought. There are certain dependencies, certain things were even outsourced to third parties. So basically, it's not really something you can really robotize. And first, you need to work on your process, change it, and then look if this can be something for robotization, right? Or maybe there are other solutions. We were trying to automate certain cash application processes, and then after a failure again, it turned out that first we need to work on our OCR solution, We are running now a Greenbelt project to change the process, and then we will come back if we can redeploy the bot, right? So definitely there are analyses, and then we try to find what will be the best for a particular problem, what others are doing as well. So.
Thank you, Michał. You said about the governance. And this is the time that Michał will tell some few words regarding the Center of Excellence versus the community.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I will. And thank you for already this discussion, because I was thinking that if robot is actually just a buzz, and whether we should talk more widely that is more automation, not only a robotization. But now I see it's like, as both of you just mentioned, let's think first whether to automate or not, and then only think about the automation. But okay, but finally, if you decide to go for it, then there is a question before we go to tools. There is a question how to do it in terms of organization perspective. Because and indeed, two approaches, two dimensions, let's say. From one perspective, you can do it, and many companies do it centrally organized. So there is a central point who decides what step needs to be done and what's organized in what sequence. Another approach is just bottom up. Make sure that everyone who is operationally involved knows how to automate in any way, and then make this automation. And later on, we'll think how to grab it in one team and make sure that it will serve the company. I would love to hear from you, from our guests. Probably, I will start maybe with Herve and then Mariusz. What was your approach? What direction was in your company, or taking the lessons learned from the story or from another companies? Maybe there is a even middle point, some golden way how to whether to go to the centralized or more democratic community. So, Herve, what is your opinion?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Maybe I can take this, Michał, if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. Actually, so far, I didn't see any big initiative coming from spontaneous RPA community in our company. Maybe some people have some ideas, but it doesn't really reflect in something tangible. So actually, when we opened the center in 2012, we were not even talking about automation in the company, most probably. I don't remember. And I wanted to react about one point that you said about why do we automate, or should we automate? And actually, we didn't even ask ourselves the question, because we receive a strong target of efficiency in the center. And how do you make efficiency? So we started to build the continuous improvement first, and on the way, the continuous improvement transformed into some macros and tools, and on the way on some basic robots that we were building with the support of a local company in Krakow. And finally, this basic robot will transform in really complex tool. And after that, the adventure continued with the support of our IT partners in Amer Sports, when we had to scale up the RPA from the center to the entire company.
Okay.
And the IT department wanted to have maybe someone or some support more recognized on the market, like a big tool. And finally, we selected UiPath. But we kept the local provider as well. And when you said, for instance, which tool should be selected, this is the same in our center, where for every automation we perform a deep dive analysis. And from this analysis, we can select if we are going for a macro-based tool, Excel or Office tool, or something a little bit different with UiPath. I would say that the the shared service center or the GBS is an ideal place to start with automation for different reasons. First, for instance, if I take our example, we are in Krakow, where we have a lot of service center, and we have a lot of examples from other companies, how did they start, and they can testify, they can support us, they can show us how they started, and it can give us a lot of ideas. We have also a lot of consulting company. Thanks, really appreciate to have this support from the specialized company who are supporting us, especially during the starting time. Yeah, because it's very difficult to start alone ourselves. So it's very good to have, very interesting to have already some experience from some consulting company, and we used this local consulting company even today again. Of course, the center will benefit also from the talent pool in Krakow. So if you need a developer, if you need a process analyst, business analyst, this kind of thing, continuous improvement specialist, you have already this available on the market. So that's why we started with the center for this different reason. But at the same time, now we are at the level, or we have to provide robots to the entire Amer Sports company. And here it's another adventure, another level. The center is completely under control. Yeah. So top-down approach. So sorry. Yep.
No.
The center is under our control, so it's kind of easy way to go. So we just go to the manager, and they are going to the team, and they are asking what kind of process we could automate. When you are at the business level from the entire company, it's not the same story completely. So that's why in Amer Sports we created the community, community ambassadors. So in each function, in each entity of Amer Sports, we were looking for an ambassador. So we have a community of maybe now 60, 70 ambassadors of RPA, and we are meeting regularly, and those ambassadors are looking in their entities what could be automated. And they are the kind of middle point between us, the specialized RPA team, and the business team, and to find some process to automate. So this is where we are.
Wow. So yeah, so what I see is that, okay, it was not maybe spontaneous, like the mushrooms in the forest, but actually it more from bottom to the up. But now you are centralizing it and having it managed from the central point of view, especially if you take to the account the resources and the tools. And but Mariusz, from your perspective, if you since you have installed so many robots and so many companies, so which approach works in your opinion better? The bottom up, the centralized,
Yeah, of course, I would love to argue there, but I can't because I'm a huge fan of the center of excellence. And really, I think it's the only real way to go. Because, well, it's not even about the tooling, because the tooling is getting better and better. Those platforms are really nice, and they build so many tools around it. So we really want to spend minimal amount of time to teach your people how to use them, how to automate themselves. But it's not about the coding of the robot, or not about the coding of the automation. It's not about that. The real strength of the Center of Excellence is the governance, the procedures, and the process is something that actually governs all of those things. So in the end, you end up with people. People want to focus on something. People want to be specialists in something. They want to grow. They want to develop their skills. So they cannot, in a community, you always do it like a part-time. So if you cannot devote yourself fully to the, automation, you won't be a specialist. So this is why Michał introduced me as a king of RoboShepherds. Okay, I really accept and I like this title, but it is all about that. You try to teach people who can do the automation in a perfect way. There's their life. They actually feel this is a future with learning new platforms, new automations, and this is why it is actually meaningful for them. It is one thing that everybody wants to have the sense of mastery of being better and better in something, and this is nice. And the other thing are the processes. when you think about what is the automation, it is a strictly engineering process. It's quite a lot of different tedious things for people who don't know that, but for the engineers, it's obvious. You have to deal with the many environments, many versions of the single automation. When you have like thousands of the macros or scripts, it's impossible to govern them. So you have to deal with somebody who takes control over that. And of course, what Herve mentions also, it is a nice thing to have the ambassadors, people who go around, even maybe sometimes write a script or two, or robot or two, but in the end, it actually goes to the center of excellence and is done by the processes and by the governance of those people who really specialize in this. And this is, from my perspective, the only way to keep it in order, to make it effective. Because, you know, it's not like, it's quite easy to let people, like hundreds of people, do the script to the macros, and even they will be efficient for their single point of view. But when you go at the level of the whole organization, and we have like hundreds of thousands of macros, it's impossible to make it efficient. And sometimes, of course, you go into the trouble because those macros fail and nobody knows who actually wrote this macro, where is the current version of it, or even where is the current version of the robot if somebody actually created it on the single computer and it actually switched it off. So basically, I would say, really think about the center of excellence. If you cannot create yourself, please ask somebody to create the center of excellence for yourself if you want to do that. If not, let somebody else do it for you, because yeah, you can go into many troubles when you go in pure, I would say, bottom-up approach.
Robotic center of excellence sounds nice as a structural way. We all like it. I see the challenge that if the center of excellence, like in terms of the Amer sport, was set up in Krakow under the Herve responsibility, is fine. What we noticed in a few corporates, center of excellence, robotic center of excellence starts in the headquarters, when the shared service center is very far. I know a few examples that, if I ask people, do you have a center of, yes, we have it, somewhere in Netherlands, somewhere in US. Do you have any start to do your processes? No, they start from the business, they start from the commercials, and we as a shared service center are far. I don't know, maybe Jarek or Michał, do you have this kind of the approach? What to do in these cases?
I think, thank you, Michał, for engaging into that discussion. I think it's an extremely interesting question, and frankly speaking, it happens, and it happens frequently if the center of excellence actually starts where the IT epicenter is. So if you have a head of IT or the major IT entity, let's say with the headquarters or in a certain place, there's a good chance that it may actually start there. And then, I mean, it's a matter of fighting for a priority in terms of both time and resources, and where does the processes coming from the shared service centers fall in the queue. And here, guys, I mean, frankly speaking, we don't have 400, we have 40 robots running in-house on Blue Prism. And I can tell you, we have started with a different approach to Herve's, maybe because of the type of a company. We're a Scandinavian company where the top-down approach was not so strong at the beginning. We had the full mandate to do it, but we actually had to prove that there is a value in it. And as such, you know, we actually started with ambassadors, and we went out. And it's interesting because, you know, most of our robots, they actually run outside of the center. They run in places like sales and marketing, they run in supply, they support some IT implementations, because these are the places that, you know, basically brought the biggest payoffs. So I would controversially say, you know, it is maybe hard to say in a black or white way where things should actually start. The important thing is that there is a transparency and there is a way in, and And depending on the criteria, it's going to be easier or more difficult, because I bet, Herve, when you guys looked into robotics, you already had pretty well running processes and things were streamlined. And I mean, it was not like the size of fat was like this. I mean, you basically probably had to deliver the next 20%, which was still a lot. But sometimes from the payoff perspective, it is not so obvious.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that actually on the question tools versus, Center of Excellence or committee, most of you answered it depends. So it means not only consultants have this way to answer the questions, but yeah, actually it does depend. I still hope that we'll discuss it further during this last point of the meeting. But now let's go to Monika to discuss the tools and the platforms.
Yeah, thank you. We had already touched this topic during our discussion, but this is a very difficult one, I would say, because companies, when they are thinking about automation, when they are thinking about robotics, they start to think what kind of tool they should choose. We know there are some really well-known, but these tools are also very expensive ones. And comparable to the others, which are maybe smaller ones, but also pretty have big possibilities. How did you choose the system, the platform? Some of you say it's Blueprism, some you say it's UiPath. How did you choose it? Was it that easy for you to choose? Yeah, what were the reasons? And maybe I will ask Jarek first.
Yeah, thank you, Monika. I think, you know, this process in general should be rather ruthless, if I may say. And here, as a starting point, I would definitely agree with Mariusz, who said, before you actually jump into the journey, just think how big the cake is, and think if this is actually something that is fitting what you need and fitting your company, fitting the maturity that you have. And then the second step that we frequently see being omitted is that people tend to skew towards RPA without really looking at the processes, you know, whether they have the right sense of maturity, whether it's actually going to bring enough value, or whether the underlying system can actually support what you need to do. So, I mean, in simple English, if you can do something in SAP that you already have up and running in your own company, you probably shouldn't put a plaster on it just because you can with RPA. I think back in the day, the decision making was a little bit simpler because most of the consulting companies, and also you can say that the choices, the first step kind of a choice, like Herve said that they went for UiPath. I mean, we went for Blueprism. I mean, is one better than the other? We could probably have a long discussion, but let's frankly say these are comparable tools. And I mean, I personally, it may be a little bit controversial. There are pros and cons for both, but I would say they are comparable. And back in the day, we were usually starting with, okay, we're going to go with that. And then we made a huge effort to make sure we pass through IT security, that we have the architecture in place, and that we basically get all the stamps from all the relevant functions in place for this to operate. I think today the principal decision on how to start is becoming more strategic, as we see also the market changing. So of course there are some incumbents on that market, like Automation Anywhere, UiPath, Blueprism, what have you. But you also have a lot of smaller players who have interesting solutions to offer. And I guess, you know, back in the day, we chose Blueprism. I'm not quite sure what would be the choice today, even though we are happy. But what we see over and over, and what I hear from other center heads or people who are working with automation, is that the policies of those companies that have captured the early market, they are also changing. And we see that, you know, it becomes more and more kind of a closed environment. So once you move into Blueprism, you know, just consider what would be the actual cost of you moving to another platform if you choose to do so, because, for example, it would better fit your needs. So I think maybe today the decisions about that are more complex, and maybe more frequent approach to that would be divide your business and do some with some and the rest with others. Except I can frankly envision how that conversation with IT would look like.
Oh yeah, they would be happy for sure.
Correct.
Yeah, that's true. Herve, and how did you choose the UA path? What helped you to make the decision?
Actually, that's a good point. So actually, the decision went from the selection process, provider selection process, driven by the IT department when we, because we started, I think I remember, we started 5 years ago, the RPA, and during 3 years we were alone. So we did it like from the center. So no IT included, no IT involved. And when we went out from the center to the company, we felt that we need really some support from IT, because the bots now, they are, as Jarek was mentioning, the bots are running also in the business, for instance, in the customer department, sales department, or supply chain, and the responsibility, I can say, the responsibility of the bot is more and more important. So it changed a bit the way you will choose the bot, because you have to have, the bot has to be in compliance, must be keeping some security points about the data, for instance. Sometimes they are requiring bigger support. So we have bots that cannot stop for any reason. So they are working every 5 minutes, you know. So if they're stopping, there is a big impact on the business. So when we are analyzing the process, depending on all those aspects, we are choosing one potentially maybe some more, let's say, Excel-oriented or Office-oriented bot, or maybe UiPath, because we need some other, let's say, features. So I would say that half of the bots are from UiPath and the other half are from the local provider. So to give you an idea.
All right. Thank you.
Maybe one comment from my side, because well, there's other way, because if you cannot decide between UiPath and Blue Prism or Automation Anywhere or Power Automate or whatever, there's a other option. You don't have to choose at all, because well, sometimes of course we're talking about this creating center of excellence and doing the community. Yeah, we're talking about people around us who are actually representing the global shared services or generally the companies that outsource things. I would like to mention one other way. You have a choice. You can outsource making robots. It's one of the activities that don't have to be your core competency, because, well, as everything else, you cannot be best at everything. So if you decide you want to be best at doing robots, of course, there's a way to do that. Probably the center of excellence would be a good idea. But if not, if you decide that it's not your core competency, yeah, please find somebody else to do it for you. It is always an option.
But I think, Mariusz, touching this point, there is something we did not discuss yet here, and it's about the overall strategy. So what is the big belief at the C-level? What are we going for? Is this a tactical experiment, or is this something that we actually truly believe we can build upon ourselves? And both solutions have pros and cons. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, Velux is working on letting people have daylight and fresh air through roof windows. I mean, This is our core competency, and having a center of excellence on robotics is an add-on. So it went back from the strategy that we had at the C-level, where we believed that this will be the right choice for us because we're going to deploy that all across the company, and we would like to stay in control of that. But if you want to make a small experiment, another solution could be a better choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have also a question regarding the costs, because we know that these systems we are talking about are really expensive ones. There are also some which are less expensive. And what about this factor? When we don't have really that a lot of money to buy licenses for UiPath or Blue Prism, what should we do then?
If I can if I can give a start to that discussion, because we have had that talk for quite some time, and we chose to go with Blue Prism, and then we also carried certain costs to make sure that we have the, as I mentioned, infrastructure, architecture, security. Everyone had to sign off, and there were certain changes to our environment that were necessary to get this up and running. But you can say on the other side, we have started and we actually continue today with a very agile team. So we have a relatively small core that is, you can say a fixed cost for us. But we work with a subcontractor that can actually provide us flexibility when we need to have more resources. In a way, from the moment when we started to the moment when we actually broke even on the costs, we needed a year and a half. So it is possible, I mean, just also to encourage you guys to think big if you believe in it, because it is also possible regardless what you choose, because if you really go down to the details, again, the offers you will receive, they will not be far off, especially for the major players.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with Jarek. If it's this robotization of center of excellence is part of your strategic vision, you have to go for it, like make a decision and then you continue with it. So, the payoff period can vary, it can be 1.5 years, as Jarek mentioned. It's extremely fast, I would say, but can be longer. But if it's a part of your strategic vision, go for it. But if not, yeah, there's a way to start small and even have somebody down, get it done, like with the licensing or infrastructure or core competency, like creating those robots and maintaining those. Yeah, there's an option, and of course, if it's not the strategic vision, even if it's a part of the strategic vision, you have to really start small, probably, because all those huge projects, I would say these days, it's really a very difficult decision to start a project like a multi-million-dollar, many years project and think about benefiting in the far future. It's something that actually comes to the past. We all think about the agility, about the fast projects, failing fast if possible, or succeeding fast if possible. This is the way to go.
Do you mind if I just introduce this point as a kind of layman in this discussion, if you like, right? So, because what I hear is the kind of community versus center of excellence, and I think Michał, you kind of brought this up, which is the kind of head office role here, and I think this probably also impacts on the kind of cost element here, because in a certain sense, Herve, when you started, it was very much inward facing, right? You were looking at efficiencies within the service center.
Yeah, exactly. So we
concept is more outward facing.
Yeah.
It's exactly. More about efficiencies within the business. And just in terms of that starting, because I mean, I don't know whether you can share with us around costs, because we're talking in very kind of general terms here about costs, but are you able to give us some kind of indication?
Yeah, of course. So we started with a very low cost approach, I have to say, and we did it inside Krakow, because we are benefiting from the environment, of course, and we didn't go for any big, let's say, international company. We went for a local company, and they were by the way, historically they were supporting us for the CI, for the continuous improvement first, and naturally from the continuous improvement we went to the RPA, or the basic RPA, I would say, and actually we were very successful. The payback, as Mariusz was mentioning, the payback was 2 months, 3 months. It's completely crazy, So you don't even need in this case to have budget, yes, because the budget is in the year. So you just replace the salary by the cost of the robot. And I think the robot currently. The robots are a little bit more expensive, but I will tell you why. But at the beginning, it was really, really cheap robot. It was even nothing for the business. So when you announced the cost, they were even thinking, so okay, we don't even need to discuss about that. Yeah? So, but now with the distance anyway, we have a bit to come back to the first bot that we were building some years ago, because they are maybe not so compliant with the time when they should be now. So maybe this is something that shouldn't have maybe with a company like a robot like UiPath. Maybe all the compliance are already included. So we are a bit to come back on the first robot that we built, and this is a bit also adding some new costs for the support. Also, as we said, the script is a bit more complicated. So yeah, but at least we were able to start. We were able to prove that the concept is working. And when you were talking about the strategic vision, for us, the Krakow Center is a laboratory. So we are allowed to make experience. We are allowed to fail. We are allowed to spend a bit of the cost. We are trying something which will not be working. Yes, because I think the center is the ideal place also to make experiences. The business is a bit more complicated because they have to face really the business, the customer, the supply chain, all this kind of thing. In the center, we have more time and more mindset to tempt some experience with new provider, with new systems, with new technology.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. I think we should go to the next point in our agenda. There is also one more question in the chat, but I hope we'll have time at the end to answer this one. So Michał, over to you. When is the center ready?
Yes, sure. I mean, it will be also, I think there are plenty of opportunities and possibilities to give even more versus 1 versus 2, etc. So hopefully we will also be able to discuss whether it should, where to place IT versus operations. But now, having in mind the agenda, let's talk shortly about when to start this automation, especially in the curve of the GBS growth path. Should it be started when we are still decentralized? Should we start it when we just finally decide to start this centralization and then growing the shared services? Or maybe it should be only when actually you are ready to start the integrated business services journey, and then this is only the moment where to start. Of course, this is the linear only approach. We know we appreciate that actually the company consists of many layers and many dimensions. So where should be? I mean, we have scheduled kind of the way on the different layers from the tools, process, culture perspective or strategy perspective, how to grow in order to make sure that we are properly growing towards the automation culture. But is it anyhow possible to say or assess, is my center now ready, or what to make sure that what to create or prepare, how to prepare to start building the center of the automation. So maybe Herve, again, your question, what do you think, when is the actually best moment to start building the automation?
Yeah, when I was looking at your slides, so I think you have to have basic let's say skills and basic let's say element to start. For instance, the improvement mindset. This is a bit natural when you are creating a center. Improvement mindset is part of the game, is part of the strategy. So naturally, the automation will be easier.
Oh, yes.
Also, when you create a center, you regroup the process in under one roof, which is giving you a bit of more scope, yes, to automate. Otherwise, if you automate in a small entity, the benefit will be difficult to reach. So it's also easier when you have a lot of processes under the same roof. You can have more benefit. So I would say that before doing this, before regrouping the processes, it will be difficult.
Okay.
I can
possible maybe, but difficult.
I can build on what Herve just said. I mean, from my perspective, if we are talking about a broader scope of automation, not only RPA, then I would say start as soon as possible, right? So definitely there has to be a center, and there has to be some operations, right? Before that, it will be, as Herve said, difficult. I fully agree that continuous mindset is a key here, right? And from our own experience, I mean, we started with that, and we started to build this foundation of continuous improvement really from day one, before even the first employees were joining, or as soon as they were joining, we were already having programs around continuous improvement. So to engage them, because some of them obviously coming from industry, they were kind of familiar, right? But not all of them. And so how to engage them, how they can come with ideas, right? And build the ideas as soon as possible. At the same time, start to see some benefits from the first automations. My experience that usually, you know, with the transitions, the teams which are taking the work and the knowledge are already understaffed, right? Because there is obviously a pressure on the benefits. So part is coming from the labor arbitrage, part is coming that we will centralize, so we will come with the economy of scale, so we will do more with less. And obviously at the beginning, before processes will be stable, it's a challenge, right? So usually what I have seen, the backlog was kicking in, the overtimes were kicking in, this was driving attrition, right? So automation is a solution, right? And which can mitigate at least some of those risks and relieve certain effort on the employee side, so which can be then reinvested. And this is how I would see it, right? Start with the continuous improvement as soon as possible, build some ideas, and then reinvest the time you are gaining with the efficiencies, not to, you know, cut headcounts and have more savings, but really redeploy them into drive more and more and more ideas and more automation until you reach a certain scale, right? And then yeah, so from that perspective, as I said, sooner the better. Right?
I think in a funny way, you know, this is a dilemma that we all know for years, and probably many of us have seen, and that is a dilemma of when you set something up, what is your first step? You know, I have seen many companies taking the approach that, okay, there has been an outsourcing decision, we're moving things to Poland or any other location, and the way that we're going to do it is we're going to lift and shift it, and then you guys will kind of standardize it, optimize it, and we're going to make sure that you actually follow that path, right? And there has been some companies, but less, that took more transformational path. Mm-hmm. So we're not going to just do the same in a different place and hope that miraculously, you know, it's going to work better and will give us payoffs from day one, because it's going to be one instead of two, like you said, Michał, in the most abstract way of thinking. But maybe we're going to also look into the processes and consider, you know, can this actually be changed before we actually move it? And if you take that approach between lift and shift and transformation into the robotics kind of a thinking or automation agenda, you can almost consider, okay, so there's a body of work that we would like to centralize and get the benefits of it. You know, I would challenge that. Do we actually need people for that? Or could we maybe consider making certain changes in the processes and taking, I don't know, 15 or 20% out of it? Immediately put it into the automation area, and then, okay, I mean, start with 80%, that will kind of be scaled afterwards, because it all goes back to the vision and mandate. So what do we actually want to achieve by robotics, and when do we want to start? And that is kind of a link with what kind of mandate does the Center of Excellence on Robotics have, and when they are actually engaged into the conversation. Because if you are not engaged at the moment when the decision is made and processes are being picked and so on, then you cannot actually raise hand and say, by the way, guys, I mean, maybe we can do it in a smarter and cheaper way if you allow us to look into it and give us a chance. So it's also a little bit about the place at the table, if you see my point.
No, I agree, and I think that comes with the fact, what is your approach to the build of the center, right? If you follow lift and shift approach, as you said, or if you do the transform and shift, which also I have seen in few other companies, right? One other thought which came to my mind is with the lift and shift, usually what I have seen is that there was a shift, there was a stabilization, and then there was a question, so what's next, right? Because labor arbitrage is gone. when the efficiency will come. And if you are not really doing this, let's say this implementing this culture at front and up front, and you are not looking forward like in chess to what will come as a next step early enough, then you will end, okay, so now I shifted, now the efficiencies are not yet there, and it would take you some time in order to come up with efficiency. So it's really, I would recommend to keep this in mind and maybe do already certain transformations already during the transition, right?
Yeah.
If possible.
Yeah, maybe one comment to what Michał has said previously. It is about this saving of time. So we need to actually find a place where people can focus on different activities. And of course, you can think about, let's first automate this idealistic approach. Let's make the assessment a big project involving many people. But we usually don't have so much time to do that. And we really need to somehow find this spare time in couple of people just to make this intellectual activity start. And this is where those robotization, automation can be not as strategic, but as tactical move just to, really automate something to free up a little bit of space of those people to make them be more creative. It is all automation is about, to making people focus on the things they are best at. So this, creative thinking, decision-making, relationship, empathy, those kind of things that we excel at. And yeah, of course, if this robot, even if it's not so 100% effective, if it saves some time, it doesn't have to even be, cost effective. But if it saves sometimes, probably the resource that we are missing most and that we value most. So this is what my take would be, not to really be afraid of starting automation, because even tactically it can give you a huge benefits in terms of people's time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Especially that, what was said is that, okay, it is a part of the strategy. However, not necessarily the strategy of headquarter, right? It should be a strategy of shared service center. Being part, of course, of the headquarter, I have the feeling that being closer to headquarter, you are much more allowed, or it's much more easy to continue the strategy of the headquarter, having your own one, especially that, as Herve mentioned, it is so crucial to allow, actually, in this particular part of the business, to actually allow or invite the experiments, and then allow, of course, if you invest huge amount of money at the beginning, then experiments might be not very welcomed. However, if you find a way to experiment and then grow it within the shared service center, then as Michał mentioned, just started, right? If anyone from our all the guests are wondering, should I start or not? Actually, I have the feeling that the answer is yes, go for it right now. Or if only you have started the shared service center, right?
Even I heard that some of the organizations received this order from the headquarters. You should have at least one robot.
Yeah.
They are also, we have one in HR somewhere. But anyway, I think it's a good idea, because you know how to eat, you know how to behave. Later on, you can discuss, you can assess whenever it's applicable to the another, especially if the headquarters gives you the founding. But it's another story.
Yeah. But I think the good thing about automation and what we are talking here about is also developing our people in the organization, and really people are eager to create such automation and such robots. So it is also a great opportunity to make them stay with us for long. Yeah.
Yes, Andrew, the same idea. We are sharing the mindset. 5 minutes to go. So our idea is now maybe to have a just final round to all of the speakers to give really takeaway, 2 or 3 sentences, takeaway. What do you recommend? Yeah, should we automate, not automate, and how to do this? Yeah, nice photo.
I think
a bit, lunch is coming, but before that, please.
Then if I can start just to get going, the 3 things from my side would be make an experiment. I mean, be brave enough, make an experiment, try environments. The second thing is make a choice that is right for your company and for your operations. Try to kind of pick the technology that is fitting both the size of your company and the needs of your company. Don't necessarily go just for the sexiest, name on the market. Make sure you capture the one that is most fitting both from the cost and agility perspective. And then the third and last one, don't forget about the IT guys. I mean, if you forget about IT and if you don't get them on board, we live in a times where everything is so interconnected, and you will never have a stable robot if you forget about taking them on board. And in fact, they can kill your best idea if you don't consult them. So please don't forget about that. That's the three from my side. Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. So maybe I can go next. So from my side, definitely automation is a future, and in any kind, right? And whenever you will decide what to automate, then also consider and think what would be the best technology behind it. If it's really RPA, or maybe there are some other tools and systems that can help you, which will basically be a better fit. Then the next thing is think about automation early and link it to continuous improvement projects, because if you are coming late, it might be already too late, and redeploy the savings into generate more ideas and more automation potentially. And try and fail, right? Because we will not be always successful from the day one, and I think from every failure we can learn a lot and see how to things should be improved and can work better. I'm a great fan of Agile, and I think that's the methodology supporting this concept.
And maybe I can take a bit what said Michał about try and fail. This is exactly our, let's say, strategy in Krakow as well. The best successes that we had were coming from our own initiative, not from the headquarters. So when you try and fail, anyway, if you fail, you are gaining experience, and you are in this world of automation, and you can catch the train and see what will be the next steps. Yeah. So be aware about, stay aware about what is going on the market, and there are a lot of things happening at the moment on the market, about the chatbots, all this kind of thing, artificial intelligence. We are just to stay aware, and as a laboratory, we have to really experiment, and sometimes we are failing, but a lot of time we have successes. Thank you, guys.
Okay, my key message would be that we shouldn't be thinking a lot about automation, robot, and so on. What we should be thinking of is our people, our employees, people who actually go to work and do their job. And really, we have to do anything, that whatever it takes to take all of those things that they don't like, that they hate, that makes them frustrated, away from their place, and let them focus on really bringing the value to the company, to make them grow, to make them be fulfill their aspirations, whatever is actually making us humans satisfied. So yeah, talking about the different ways to do that, we can select the tools. But first thing that comes to my mind every time I actually try and try to automate anything is think about how those people will be finding themselves after something actually has been automated, how their work is going to change, how their attitude, how their inspirations and aspirations will be fulfilled. This is something that I care most. Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Mariusz.
Michał, Monika, Andrew, I will put me on the last.
Okay. Well, look, I can come if you like. I just realised that we're at 1:15, and I mean, I would really echo what Mariusz has just said there. I mean, automation, and we heard that automation is the future. I'd go so far as to say automation is the past, present, and future. And I think we do have to grasp the nettle, because if we don't, then what will happen with our people, right? There'll be concerns about automation. So we really need to include our people in that particular journey. Just one other comment, which is, we talked about the proximity of the service centre to the head office. I would say that the visibility of our centres vis-a-vis the head office through this pandemic has never been higher. So in that sense, the opportunity, it seems to me, is more now than ever. And maybe a third or final point, which is this, is maybe to demystify a little bit. And I hope that that's maybe what we've done today, which is that in a certain sense, automation is just another aspect of transformation. And so, we should just continue to do the things that we do well, with automation as an aspect of that transformation. So, and thank you very much for everyone for engaging today. It's been fantastic, and we've lost very few people along the way. You may have noticed.
Thank you. I think it's very important to remember that the whole automation is important in the company. Yeah, not only robotics. These are popular right now. We don't know what the future will bring, but just remember that there is always field for improvement, and there are a lot of processes we can start with, and then see what can we do later. Yeah, but it's very important to start, as Michał said from the start, and I totally agree. We should enable our people to use their knowledge and skills to improve just from the time we are moving the processes to the SSC, because that will make them much more motivated to the work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, and just on top of that, yeah, of course we need to stay humans, right? So, and human means also that we love to observe things growing and building, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we need to get rid of technology. We actually keep being humans together, working with the technology and taking care about both. So again, thank you very much for absolutely interesting discussion.
Yeah, so two points from my side. One, you talk about the people, so I will not talk. I will less human, meaning I will put emphasis also the processes. Yeah, so the automation is the tool, but in fact we are focusing on the people and we are focusing on the processes the people are servicing. One very short question to the point, to the question, answer to the question on the chat. Definitely, we recommend the Center of Excellence should be closer to the business, closer to the shared service center, not to the IT. IT should be the helping hand in the Robotic Center of Excellence, an enabler, not in the driving seat. So definitely the business or the shared service center should drive it. And to closing our discussion, thank you very much. In behalf of Andrew, I am welcoming all of you in ASPIRE community. In our, we are welcoming in adaptive community and hope to see you in the future, to hear you in the future. As mentioned at the beginning, the recording and the presentation will be available for each of you registered just with the welcome and with the help thank you message after the call. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Have a nice sunny afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.